For 17 years I tracked Christians, not physically, spiritually. We had files on them before they even knew they were saved. And I can tell you right now, most believers have no idea they've been watched since the day they were born. My name's Ryder. I grew up in a faded railroad town in central Kansas, maybe 6,000 people. The kind of place where the train doesn't stop anymore, but the tracks still cut through everything. My father worked for the railroad until it killed him. Heart attack on the job when I was 17. I enlisted 2 weeks after his funeral. I did 2 tours in the Gulf, came back emptier than the desert I'd walked through. My mother had remarried while I was gone. New husband didn't want me around, made that real clear. So I drifted, town to town, odd jobs, sleeping in my truck more nights than not. That's when I found the Brotherhood. They found me, actually. Had a bar outside Tulsa. I was nursing a beer I couldn't really afford when this guy sat down next to me. Big guy, tattoos everywhere. But there was something in his eyes, something that looked like family. He told me about a group, men who looked out for each other, men who understood what it meant to serve something bigger than yourself, men who had real power. I was hooked before I even knew what I was agreeing to. Within 3 months, I was doing work I never imagined. Not the kind of work you think. This wasn't about running drugs or collecting debts. This was spiritual work, targeted, systematic, and aimed directly at Christians. In my 17 years, I personally tracked and assigned demons to over 640 Christians. I trained 24 others to do the same work. My success rate? 91%. I kept records. But here's what keeps me up at night. Even 12 years after I gave my life to Christ, most of those Christians, they never knew they were being watched. They never knew their names were in files. They never knew that the struggles they faced weren't random, weren't just bad luck, weren't just life being hard. Those struggles were assigned. They were targeted. They were designed specifically for their destiny. And tonight, I'm going to tell you exactly how we did it. How we tracked Christians from birth. How we knew what their purpose was before they did. How we assigned specific demons based on their calling. And most importantly, I'm going to tell you how to break every tracking mechanism and assignment on your life. Because knowing this stuff, it changes everything. Let me start with something that's going to make you uncomfortable. We tracked you from birth. I don't mean metaphorically, I mean literally. There were systems in place, protocols, ways of identifying high-value targets before they ever set foot in a church. See, here's what most Christians don't understand. The enemy doesn't wait for you to become a threat before he moves against you. He doesn't watch you grow up, see you give your life to Jesus, and then think about what to do. By then, it's too late. The most effective assignments are planted early. Before you know who you are, before you understand your calling. Let me tell you about a man named Danny. Danny was born in a small town in Oklahoma, population maybe 4,000. His mother was a believer, his father wasn't. Pretty common situation. But what made Danny special, what put him on our radar, was what happened at his birth. See, we had people in hospitals, not everywhere, but in certain areas, certain regions where we knew there was spiritual activity. These people weren't nurses or doctors. They were watchers. They looked for signs, and when Danny was born, there were signs. His mother had been praying over him for 9 months, literally speaking scripture over her belly every single day. When he came out, one of our watchers was there. She felt something, a heaviness in the room, a presence that wasn't demonic, that was holy. She reported it. Within 72 hours, Danny had a file. Before he could walk, before he could talk, before he had any idea what the word destiny even meant, we were already planning his destruction. Now I know what you're thinking. How is that even possible? How can you target a baby? I'm going to tell you exactly how. There are 5 ways we identified high-value targets from birth. And if you're watching this, if you've ever felt like something was fighting against you before you even got started, chances are you were one of them. The first way we identified targets was through spiritual lineage. This is the most common method. If your parents were believers, if your grandparents were prayer warriors, if there was anyone in your family line who walked with God powerfully, you were flagged immediately. We kept records going back generations. We knew which family lines produced preachers, prophets, healers. We knew which bloodlines carried spiritual authority, and we targeted them specifically. Danny's grandmother on his mother's side. She had led over 200 people to Christ in her lifetime. 200. That's not just a Christian, that's a threat. And threats produce more threats. So when Danny was born to her daughter, we knew. We knew that whatever calling was on that family was now on him. And we had to move fast. The second way we identified targets was through birth circumstances. This is going to sound strange, but stay with me. Certain births carry spiritual markers. Difficult pregnancies that should have ended in miscarriage but didn't. Babies born during times of intense prayer. Children conceived after years of infertility when the parents had given up. These circumstances tell us something. They tell us that God intervened, that He protected something, that He had a purpose. Danny's birth was complicated. Cord wrapped around his neck. Should have died. Didn't. His mother was praying the whole time. Speaking in tongues right there in the delivery room. That's a marker. That's a sign that says, this one is protected. This one is important. This one has a destiny that heaven itself is guarding. And when heaven guards something, we take notice. The third way we identified targets was through prophetic words. This one is going to hit home for some of you. If someone ever spoke a word over you as a child, if a pastor prayed for you and said something about your future, if a grandmother declared that you would be used by God, if anyone anywhere released a prophetic word over your life, we heard about it. How? Because we had people in churches, not demons, people, real humans who had been recruited just like me. They sat in services, they listened, they took notes, and when they heard someone being spoken over, they reported it. Danny was dedicated at his church when he was 6 months old. The pastor, a man named Brother Williams, held him up and said these exact words, "This child will shake nations for the kingdom." Our watcher was there. She heard it. She reported it within the hour. Danny went from being a flag target to a priority target. Shake nations for the kingdom. That's not a Sunday school teacher. That's not someone who shows up twice a year. That's a world changer. And world changers get the strongest assignments. The fourth way we identified targets was through natural gifts. Children who showed unusual intelligence early. Children who had a presence about them. Children who seemed to draw people in, to lead naturally, to speak with authority even when they were small. These are markers too. God doesn't waste gifts. If He gives someone unusual ability, it's for a reason. It's for a purpose. And if we could identify that ability early, we could assign demons specifically designed to corrupt it, misdirect it, or destroy it completely. Danny started reading at 3, full sentences at 4. By 6, he was asking questions about God that most adults couldn't answer. He had a gift, a mind that could grasp spiritual truth at levels that didn't make sense for his age. We saw that, we noted it, and we assigned accordingly. Now, before I get to the fifth way we identified targets, I need to tell you about something. That is why I want to tell you about something called Destroying Assignments, the 14-day Deliverance Protocol. It is a complete system that teaches believers how to identify and destroy the most common demonic assignments. This protocol covers every type of assignment we used: financial attacks, marriage attacks, health attacks, and destiny attacks. This protocol was developed by believers who understand spiritual warfare. And I myself went through this protocol after my deliverance. It was part of my healing process, learning how to recognize and break every assignment that I had helped to place on people. The link is in the description. Do not wait. The enemy does not wait. All right, let me tell you about the fifth way we identified high-value targets. But first, let me go deeper on these identification methods, because I want you to understand just how systematic this was. This wasn't random. This wasn't guessing. This was organized spiritual surveillance. Let me tell you about another case involving spiritual lineage. There was a family in Missouri, 3 generations of prayer warriors. The grandfather had been a traveling evangelist in the 1950s, went town to town, set up tent revivals, saw thousands saved. His son became a pastor of a small country church. Nothing flashy, but the presence of God was thick in that place. Healings happened, deliverances happened, real kingdom work. When the pastor's daughter got pregnant, we already had a file open. We knew that whatever was coming through that bloodline was going to be powerful. The baby was a girl named Hope. We started tracking Hope before she was born. We had someone at the baby shower listening to conversations. We had someone at the church noting every prayer spoken over her. By the time Hope took her first breath, we had assigned 3 watchers to her specifically. For 18 years we tracked every milestone: her baptism at 8, the prophetic dream she had at 11 where she saw herself preaching to thousands, the healing gift that manifested at 14 when she prayed for a classmate with migraines, and the migraines never came back. Each event added to her file. Each manifestation of calling increased her threat level. By the time Hope was 18, her file was thicker than any I'd ever seen, and the assignments we had placed on her life were the most comprehensive I had ever coordinated. Confusion demons to scatter her thoughts whenever she tried to pray. Isolation demons to poison every friendship and romantic relationship. Delay demons to make her miss every opportunity. And a low-level destruction assignment designed to introduce chronic illness that would sap her energy and steal her years. For a while it worked. Hope struggled through her 20s. Couldn't hold a job, couldn't maintain relationships, couldn't figure out what she was supposed to do with her life. The prophetic dream she had at 11 seemed like a cruel joke. Preached to thousands. She could barely get through a conversation without anxiety overwhelming her. She spent 3 years on anxiety medication, 2 years barely leaving her apartment, 1 year so sick with an undiagnosed illness that she thought she was dying. That was us, all of it. But here's what we underestimated. The grandfather, the traveling evangelist from the 1950s, he was still alive, 93 years old and still praying, every single day, for his granddaughter by name, declaring the calling on her life, refusing to accept the evidence that said she was finished. When Hope was 28, she had what the doctors called a spontaneous remission. The illness that had plagued her for a year simply disappeared. No explanation, no treatment that worked. Just gone. Within 3 months, the anxiety lifted too. Within a year, she was leading a Bible study. Within 3 years, she was on staff at a church. Within 5 years, she was speaking at conferences. The prophetic dream came true. It was delayed by almost 2 decades. But it came true. And her grandfather lived just long enough to see it. He died at 96, 3 months after watching her preach to 12,000 people at a women's conference. Generational prayer protection. It's real. And it's one of the reasons we targeted bloodlines so aggressively. Because when a family line has real intercessors, our work becomes exponentially harder. Now let me tell you more about birth circumstances. I mentioned Danny's complicated birth, but let me give you another example that shows just how specific our tracking was. There was a boy in Tennessee, born 6 weeks premature. The doctors said he wouldn't survive the night. Then they said he wouldn't survive the week. Then they said if he did survive, he would have severe developmental disabilities. His mother refused to accept any of it. She sat in that NICU for 47 days, speaking scripture over her son. Every hour she was awake, she was declaring life over him, declaring purpose, declaring that God had plans for him. Our watcher at that hospital flagged him on day 3. When a child survives something that shouldn't be survivable, when a mother fights with that kind of faith, when the natural order says death and life happens anyway, that tells us something significant. That tells us heaven intervened. And heaven doesn't intervene for nothing. That boy grew up to become one of the most influential worship leaders of his generation. You would know his name if I told you. Songs he wrote are sung in churches around the world every Sunday. But for most of his 20s, he couldn't write a single song that worked. That was our confusion assignment, specifically designed to block his creative gift, to make him doubt his ability, to convince him that whatever he had as a teenager was gone and wasn't coming back. It took him years to break through that. Years of fighting, years of pressing in despite the silence. Years of writing songs that went nowhere until finally one day the dam broke. We don't just track obvious signs. We track survival. We track faith demonstrated under pressure. We track anything that indicates God is protecting something significant. Let me tell you more about prophetic words. This is one people really need to understand. When someone speaks a prophetic word over you, especially when you're young, it creates a spiritual marker, like a beacon, and we can see it. I'm not saying every prophetic word is real. Some are just emotional. Some are well-meaning but inaccurate. But when a genuine word from God is spoken over someone, there's a weight to it, a substance, something that echoes in the spirit realm. Our watchers were trained to recognize that weight. There was a child at a church in Georgia, 8 years old. During a regular Sunday service, a visiting prophet called him out of the crowd. Never met the boy, knew nothing about him, but he walked straight to him and said these words, "Son, God has placed the heart of a king in you. You will influence leaders, governments will seek your counsel, nations will change because of words you speak." Now that sounds crazy, right? An 8-year-old, governments, nations? But that word had weight. Our watcher felt it, reported it immediately. We opened a file that day. For the next 20 years, we assigned demons specifically designed to destroy that boy's confidence, to make him afraid of public speaking, to create anxiety around authority figures, to make the very thought of influence terrifying. And for most of his life, it worked. He became an accountant, a good one, but an accountant. Numbers instead of nations, spreadsheets instead of speeches. The safest possible path away from everything that word had declared over him until he was 35. That's when a political candidate in his state asked him to help with campaign finances, just accounting work, nothing significant. But something happened during that campaign. The candidate started asking his opinion, not about numbers, about strategy, about messaging, about connecting with people. The accountant, who was supposed to be afraid of influence, suddenly found himself advising someone running for Congress. Within 2 years, he was working in Washington. Within 5 years, he was one of the most trusted advisors in his field. Within 10 years, the word spoken over him at 8 years old was manifesting in ways even the prophet couldn't have imagined. Nations will change because of words you speak. It's happening right now. And every day it happens is a day our assignment failed. The fifth way was through demonic intelligence. This is the one that's hardest for most people to accept. But it's the most important. Demons talk to each other. They report. They share intelligence. And when they encounter something in the spirit realm that they can't handle, they escalate. Sometimes a demon would be assigned to a general area, a neighborhood, a school, and they would encounter a child who was different, a child whose prayers, even at 5 or 6 years old, carried weight, a child who the demon couldn't get close to. That would get reported, and we would respond. Danny, by the time he was 7, had already been prayed over by his mother so many times that there was a wall around him. The first demon we sent couldn't get through, couldn't touch him, couldn't even get close enough to whisper. That's when we escalated. That's when we brought in the specialists. See, not all demons are equal. Some are stronger, some are specialized, and some are specifically designed to attack destiny. These are the ones we assigned to high-value targets. For Danny, we assigned 3. The first was assigned to his mind. Its job was to create confusion around his calling, to make him doubt every prophetic word spoken over him, to fill his head with so much noise that he couldn't hear God's voice. The second was assigned to his relationships. Its job was to isolate him, to destroy every friendship, every mentorship, every connection that might help him fulfill his purpose, to make him feel completely alone. The third was assigned to his timing. This is a specialized demon most people don't know about. Its job was to make him miss every opportunity. Every door would close just before he reached it. Every breakthrough would slip away at the last second. Every season of blessing would end right before the harvest. 3 demons, assigned before he hit puberty, working in coordination to destroy a destiny that God had ordained. And here's the thing that breaks my heart to say. It almost worked. Now, if this is hitting home for you, if you've been dealing with confusion about your calling, if you've felt isolated, if you've watched opportunities slip away over and over, I want you to participate in something powerful right now. In the comments, write out this declaration: "My destiny cannot be tracked or stopped in Jesus' name." And I mean write it out, don't just think it. When you participate in public declaration, when you put it in writing, something shifts in the spirit realm. I've seen it happen when believers participate together. So participate now. Take 10 seconds. Write it out. Let me tell you what happened to Danny. By the time he was 16, Danny had given up on everything. The confusion demon had done its work. He didn't know what he believed anymore. The isolation demon had done its work. He had no real friends, no mentors, no one speaking into his life. The timing demon had done its work. He'd tried out for the basketball team and got cut, applied for a scholarship and got rejected, asked a girl to prom and got humiliated. Everything was failure, constant, unrelenting failure. And that was by design. See, our goal with high-value targets wasn't always to kill them. Sometimes it was more effective to keep them alive but completely disabled. A preacher who never preaches, a leader who never leads, a prophet who never prophesies, that's almost worse than death. Because they take up space, they fill a role that should be filled by someone walking in their calling. But they're empty, hollow, going through the motions. Let me explain how we coordinated these three demons on Danny. The confusion demon worked primarily through his thoughts. Every time Danny would start to get clarity about his purpose, every time he would feel drawn toward ministry or teaching or any expression of his gift, the confusion would come. Not obviously, not like a voice saying, "Don't do that." More subtle, more like static on a radio. The signal was there, but he couldn't quite tune in. He would start reading his Bible and find his mind wandering to something else. He would feel led to pray and suddenly remember something he needed to do. He would sense God speaking and immediately doubt whether it was really God or just his own imagination. This went on for years, the constant inability to hear clearly, the perpetual fog around his calling. Until eventually he stopped trying to hear at all. The isolation demon worked through his emotions and relationships. This demon didn't make people dislike Danny. That would have been too obvious. Instead, it created a wall, an invisible barrier that kept everyone at arm's length. Danny would make a friend, and just when the friendship started to deepen, something would happen. A misunderstanding, a perceived slight, a sudden distance neither of them could explain. By his junior year of high school, Danny had learned to stop trying to connect deeply with anyone. It hurt too much when it inevitably fell apart, so he stayed on the surface, friendly but not friends, present but not connected. Exactly where we wanted him. The timing demon was the most sophisticated of the three. This demon's job wasn't to prevent opportunities. That would be too obvious. Instead, it was to ensure Danny was never quite ready when the opportunity came. A youth pastor tried to mentor him when he was 14. Danny wasn't interested at the time. By the time Danny realized he needed mentorship, that youth pastor had moved to another state. A small group was forming at his school for student believers. Danny heard about it the week after it started. He felt weird showing up late, so he never went. A mission trip opportunity came up that would have changed his life. Danny had the money, had the time, had nothing stopping him, but something just felt off about the timing. He decided to wait for next year. There wasn't a next year. The organization leading the trip dissolved over and over, year after year. The door would open at exactly the wrong moment, or Danny would feel ready at exactly the moment there was nothing to be ready for. This is what coordinated assignment looks like. Three demons working together, each doing a specific job, all serving the same goal, the complete neutralization of a destiny. Danny dropped out of school at 17, started drinking, started using. By 20, he was living in his car, same as I had been. Same emptiness, same hopelessness. The assignment was working perfectly, but here's what we didn't count on. Danny's mother never stopped praying. 17 years, every single night, she would get on her knees beside her bed and call his name before the throne of heaven. She would declare the prophetic word that Brother Williams had spoken over him. She would remind God of his promises. And let me tell you something about a mother's prayers that I learned the hard way. They're harder to block than anything else. There's something about a mother interceding for her child that carries authority we couldn't match. It's like trying to dam a river with your bare hands. You might slow it down for a while, but eventually, it's coming through. Danny's mother's prayers finally broke through when he was 23. He was sitting in his car outside a liquor store, counting change to see if he had enough for a bottle, and a man walked up to his window. Old man, white beard, worn-out Bible in his hand. The man didn't say much, just looked at Danny and said, "God told me to tell you that your destiny is still waiting, and the weapons formed against you will not prosper." Then he walked away. Danny sat there for an hour, couldn't move, couldn't think. Something was breaking inside him, all that confusion, all that isolation, all that missed timing. It was like it was cracking apart. He drove to his mother's house that night, first time in 3 years. She was on her knees when he walked in, still praying, still calling his name. He fell apart in her arms. That was the beginning of the end for our assignment on Danny. Within 2 years, Danny was in ministry. Within 5, he was pastoring a church of over 2,000 people. Within 10, he was traveling internationally, teaching on spiritual warfare to believers in 50 countries. Shake nations for the kingdom. Brother Williams had spoken it when Danny was 6 months old, and despite everything we threw at him, despite 3 specialized demons working in coordination for over 20 years, the word came to pass. Because here's what I learned about destiny. You can delay it, you can confuse it, you can isolate the person carrying it. You can mess with their timing over and over again, but you cannot destroy what God has ordained. Now I want to tell you about how we actually assigned demons based on destiny, because this is the part most people don't understand. We didn't assign randomly. There was a system, a protocol, and once I explain it to you, you're going to start recognizing it in your own life. There are 4 types of destiny assignments. The first is the confusion assignment. This is the most common. It's designed for people whose calling involves teaching, preaching, writing, or any form of communication. If your destiny involves speaking truth, we assigned demons specifically designed to cloud your thinking. These demons don't make you stupid. They make you scattered. You have 100 ideas but can't finish one. You start projects and abandon them. You know you're supposed to do something but can't figure out what. Sound familiar? The confusion assignment is designed to keep you busy without being productive, to keep you moving without making progress, to keep you alive but ineffective. I assigned this demon to a woman named Sarah in Minnesota. She had a gift for writing. Even as a child, her words carried weight. She wrote a poem in 3rd grade that made her teacher cry. We saw it, we assigned it. By the time she was 30, Sarah had started 7 different books and finished none. Had launched 4 blogs and abandoned them all, had notebooks full of sermons she would never preach. She knew she was supposed to write. She could feel it in her bones. But every time she sat down, the confusion would come, doubt, distraction. The sense that whatever she was writing wasn't good enough, wasn't clear enough, wasn't ready. For 15 years, she produced nothing. That was the assignment working perfectly. If you've experienced this, if you felt called to communicate but can't seem to produce anything, I want you to participate in something right now. In the comments, write this declaration. Every confusion assignment over my communication is broken now. Write it out. Don't scroll past this. Take 10 seconds and declare it. The second type of destiny assignment is the isolation assignment. This one is reserved for people whose calling involves leadership, pastoring, or building community. If your destiny is to gather people, we assigned demons specifically designed to push people away. These demons don't make you unlikable. They make you misunderstood. Every relationship has unexplained tension. Every connection feels fragile. People who should be close to you keep their distance for reasons neither of you can explain. I assigned this demon to a man named Kevin in Ohio. He had a natural ability to lead. People followed him instinctively. Even in high school, he was the one everyone looked to. We saw it. We assigned it. Let me tell you what the isolation assignment did to Kevin. His first marriage ended because his wife said she never felt truly close to him. She loved him. She believed he loved her. But there was always something between them. A wall she couldn't name. A distance she couldn't bridge. Kevin was devastated. He'd done everything right. Faithful, provider, present. But somehow, still not connected. His second marriage ended for the exact same reason. Different woman, same complaint. I feel like I don't really know you. I feel like you're holding back. Kevin wasn't holding back. That was the tragedy. He was giving everything he had. But the isolation demon created interference. It corrupted the signal between his heart and his expression of it. The small groups he started at church would follow the same pattern. Great beginning. Genuine connections forming. Then, around month 3, something would shift. Someone would feel offended. Someone would stop showing up. Someone would create drama. Kevin would try to address it, try to reconcile, try to get things back on track, but the damage was always done. The group would limp along for a few more months and then quietly die. 3 times he tried. 3 times he watched it fall apart. And each time, the confusion that came with the isolation made him wonder if he was the problem. Maybe I'm not meant to lead. Maybe I'm not able to connect. Maybe I should just stop trying. That internal narrative, that was us too. The isolation demon doesn't just separate you from others. It separates you from the truth about yourself. By the time Kevin was 35, he had been through 2 divorces, lost countless friendships, started 3 small groups at his church, and watched each one fall apart within months. He couldn't figure out why. He was kind. He was genuine. He was everything you would want in a leader. But something always went wrong. Someone always got offended. The connection always broke. That was the assignment. Working behind the scenes, poisoning every relationship before it could flourish. Kevin almost gave up on ministry entirely. Almost decided that leadership wasn't for him. Almost accepted the lie that he was meant to be alone. Almost. But God had other plans. Kevin's breakthrough came through the most unlikely source. A men's conference he almost didn't attend. A speaker he'd never heard of. A message about the spirit of rejection and how it masquerades as isolation. Something clicked that weekend. Kevin realized for the first time that the pattern in his life wasn't his fault. It wasn't a character flaw. It wasn't something broken inside him. It was an assignment. He began to fight differently, not just working harder at relationships, actually warring against the spiritual force that had been sabotaging them. Within 2 years, Kevin was remarried. This time, the connection held. The wall that had always been there came down. His wife describes it as finally seeing the real him for the first time. His small group today has been meeting for 8 years, 30 people who have walked through life together, baptisms, funerals, job losses, babies born, real community. And Kevin? He leads a network of small group leaders across 3 states now, training others to build the connections he was once unable to build himself. The assignment was designed to keep him alone. Now he's teaching thousands how to connect. That's what happens when you identify and break these things. The 3rd type of destiny assignment is the delay assignment. This is the one I mentioned with Danny, the timing demon. It's designed for people whose destiny has specific windows, specific seasons, specific opportunities that must be seized at the right moment. If your calling depends on timing, we assigned demons specifically designed to make you late, to make you hesitant, to make you miss the moment over and over until you stop trying. These demons don't stop opportunities from coming. That would be too obvious. Instead, they make you unaware, unprepared, unavailable. The door opens and you're looking the other way. The phone rings and you don't answer. The invitation comes and you decline because you're not ready. I assigned this demon to a young man named Marcus in Texas. He had a gift for business, a vision for using wealth to fund kingdom work. He would have ideas, clear ideas for businesses that would succeed, but he never acted on them. Let me tell you exactly how the delay assignment operated in Marcus's life. Marcus had his first business idea at 19. A service that would help churches manage their volunteer schedules. Simple, needed. He could see exactly how it would work, but something held him back. Maybe I should get more experience first. Maybe I need to save up more money. Maybe the timing isn't right. He waited. 3 years later, he saw the exact same concept launch. It became one of the most successful church management platforms in the country. The founder became wealthy. And that wealth funded mission work all over the world. That should have been Marcus. At 25, Marcus had another idea. A Christian conference for young entrepreneurs, networking, teaching, building kingdom-minded business leaders. He could see the venue. He could see the speakers. He could see the impact. But something held him back. I don't have the connections to pull this off. I don't have the credibility yet. Maybe in a few years. He waited. 4 years later, someone else launched the exact same concept. It grew to over 5,000 attendees annually, changed the trajectory of countless young business people, created a movement. That should have been Marcus. At 32, Marcus had what he knew was his best idea yet. An app that would connect Christian business owners with customers who wanted to support faith-based companies. A way to keep money in the kingdom. A tool for economic impact. This time he was ready. He had the experience, he had the savings. He had learned from watching others execute his previous ideas. But something held him back. The tech landscape is changing too fast. What if there's a recession? What if it fails? He waited. 2 years later, a similar platform launched. Within 18 months, it had over 100,000 users and was valued at $40 million. That should have been Marcus. By the time Marcus understood what was happening, he was almost 40. He had watched 3 of his ideas become successes for other people, 3 opportunities to fund kingdom work, 3 chances to walk in his calling, all gone. The delay assignment didn't stop the ideas from coming. It stopped him from acting on them, every single time. If this sounds like your story, if you've watched opportunities pass you by while something held you back, participate with me right now. Write this in the comments. I will not miss my moment. I step into my destiny now. Declare it. Put it in writing. Let something shift in the spirit. Marcus's breakthrough came at 41. He was at a business conference, listening to a speaker talk about the cost of hesitation. The speaker said something that pierced through years of delay. The enemy's greatest victory isn't when you fail. It's when you never try. Marcus broke down right there in the conference hall. 17 years of watching his ideas become other people's successes. 17 years of hesitation that he now understood had been orchestrated. He started his next business idea within 30 days. Didn't wait for perfect conditions. Didn't wait for more experience. Didn't wait for the timing to feel right. Within 2 years, that business was generating over $1 million annually. Within 4 years, Marcus had funded the construction of 3 churches, 2 orphanages and a clean water project that serves over 50,000 people. The delay is broken now. Marcus doesn't hesitate anymore. When God gives him an idea, he moves. That's what happens when you identify the assignment and decide to fight back. The 4th type of destiny assignment is the destruction assignment. This is the most severe. It's reserved for the highest value targets, the ones whose calling, if fulfilled, would do catastrophic damage to the kingdom of darkness. These aren't confusion demons. These aren't isolation demons. These are killers. Their job is to end you. Physically, if possible, but if not physically, then completely. Total destruction of everything you are, everything you have, everything you could become. Addiction that won't break, illness that won't heal, accidents that shouldn't happen, mental torment that drives you to the edge. I only assigned this level of demon 3 times in my 17 years, because these assignments require approval from the highest levels. They're not given out casually. One of those 3 was a teenage girl in Arkansas. I'm not going to tell you her name because she's still alive, and she doesn't know I'm the one who assigned what came against her. She had a prophetic gift that I've never seen before or since. At 14 years old, she could see things, accurately, specifically. She would know things before they happened. She would see people's hearts. She would hear God's voice with a clarity that terrified everyone around her, including us. We identified her at a youth camp where one of our watchers was working as a counselor. She prayed for another girl during an altar call and spoke out a word of knowledge that exposed abuse happening in that girl's home. Abuse that no one knew about. Abuse that was stopped that very week. That's when we moved. Let me tell you why destruction assignments are reserved for people like her. A prophet who operates at that level doesn't just threaten individual demons. They threaten entire operations. They can see what we're doing. They can expose it. They can warn people before we can act. They can dismantle years of preparation with a single word. The girl in Arkansas had already done exactly that, by 14. Without any training, without any understanding of what she was doing. Just pure, raw prophetic authority. If she reached maturity, if she was developed, if she learned to operate in her gift with full understanding and skill, she would be one of the most dangerous people in the country to everything we were building. So the decision was made. Destruction. Within 6 months, the destruction assignment was in place. What happened to her over the next 3 years I won't describe in detail, but I'll tell you this. There was an accident that should have killed her. She survived with injuries that took 2 years to heal. There was an illness that doctors couldn't explain. She lost 50 pounds in 4 months. They thought it was cancer. It wasn't anything they could identify. There was a period of mental torment so severe that she was hospitalized twice. She heard voices that told her to end her life. She saw things that weren't there. She lived in a darkness most people can't imagine. And through all of it, her mother prayed. Her church prayed. Her youth pastor, who had recognized her gift, fought for her in the spirit with everything he had. She shouldn't be alive. Multiple times she shouldn't be alive. And the fact that she is, the fact that she made it through, the fact that she's now one of the most powerful prophetic voices in the underground church in a country I won't name, that tells you everything about the limits of our power. The destruction assignment failed, not because we didn't try hard enough. We threw everything at her, everything we had authority to throw, and still, God's hand over her was stronger. She told me later, years later, after I had given my life to Christ and sought out many of the people I had hurt, that during the worst of it, during the darkest nights, when she wanted to give up more than anything, she would feel something, like arms around her, like a presence holding her together when everything inside her was falling apart. She didn't know what it was at the time. She thought maybe she was going crazy. Maybe the thing holding her was the same thing destroying her. But it wasn't. It was God. Refusing to let go, refusing to let the assignment succeed, refusing to release a destiny He had ordained before she was born. We can destroy, we can delay, we can confuse, we can isolate, but we cannot override what the Most High has declared. That's the truth I learned on the other side, and it's the truth I need you to hold on to right now. Your destiny is stronger than any assignment. Now let me tell you how to break these assignments, because knowing you're being tracked isn't enough. Knowing how the assignments work isn't enough. You need to know how to end them. There are 4 keys to breaking a destiny assignment. The first key is identification. You cannot fight what you cannot name. And most Christians are fighting blind. They know something is wrong. They feel the resistance. But they can't identify what they're dealing with. Let me make this simple. If you struggle with clarity around your calling, with scattered thinking, with starting but not finishing, your assignment is confusion. Name it. Call it out. Confusion, I see you. I know what you are. And you're finished. If you struggle with relationships, with unexplained distance, with connections that keep breaking, your assignment is isolation. Name it. Isolation, I see you. I know your game. And it ends today. If you struggle with timing, with missed opportunities, with always being late to your own blessing, your assignment is delay. Name it. Delay, I recognize you now. You've stolen enough of my time. No more. If you struggle with destruction, with attack after attack, with things coming against your life that shouldn't be possible, your assignment is destruction. Name it. Destruction, you were sent to end me. But greater is He that is in me than you. I will not die but live. Identification is the first key. Let me tell you why identification matters so much. There was a woman in my church, about 5 years after I got saved, who was struggling with everything: health, finances, marriage, ministry. Nothing was working. She would pray, she would fast, she would do everything she knew to do. Nothing changed. I sat with her one afternoon and just listened. For 2 hours, she told me about the patterns in her life, the doors that kept closing, the relationships that kept breaking, the clarity she could never quite find. And I recognized it. All 3. Confusion, isolation, delay, working together. Exactly the kind of coordinated assignment I used to place on high-value targets. When I explained what I saw, when I named what was operating against her, something shifted in her face. It was like a light came on. I'm not crazy, she said. There really is something fighting against me. Yes, and now you know what it is. Within 3 months, everything changed. Not because she did anything dramatically different, but because now she knew what to fight. She could pray specifically, declare specifically, war specifically. Identification changes everything. The second key is declaration. This is why I keep asking you to write things in the comments, because declaration matters, speaking matters, writing matters. When you declare something in the name of Jesus, something happens in the spirit realm. Demons don't just hear you. They have to respond. They have to obey. They cannot ignore a declaration made in faith. But here's the thing most people miss. Your declaration has to be specific. Don't just say, break every curse. Say, I break the assignment of confusion that was placed on my calling at birth. I break the assignment of isolation that has destroyed my relationships. I break the assignment of delay that has stolen my opportunities. Be specific, name what you're breaking, and watch it shatter. Let me give you an example of how specific declaration works. I knew a man who had been blocked financially for over a decade. Good worker, multiple degrees, excellent skills, but he could never get ahead. Every raise led to an unexpected expense. Every promotion led to a company layoff. Every investment failed. He had prayed generally for years. Lord, bless my finances. God, help me with money. Jesus, provide for my family. Nothing changed. Then someone taught him to pray specifically, to identify the exact assignment and declare directly against it. I break the assignment that tracks every financial blessing and diverts it before it reaches me. I break the assignment that monitors every opportunity and destroys it at the moment of breakthrough. I declare that the seal over my finances is removed today. Money will come and money will stay, in Jesus' name. Within 90 days, he got a job offer he hadn't applied for. 40% salary increase, full benefits, a position that used every skill he had been developing for years. Specific declaration breaks specific assignments. The third key is consecration. This is where most Christians fall short. You can identify the assignment, you can declare against it. But if you're still living in compromise, if you're still giving the enemy legal ground, if you're still entertaining the very things that give those demons access, your declarations won't stick. I watched this happen over and over when I was doing the work. A believer would get breakthrough. They'd identify the assignment, they'd make powerful declarations, and for a few weeks, maybe a few months, things would change. Then they'd go right back. They'd go back to the shows that fed their confusion. They'd go back to the relationships that enabled their isolation. They'd go back to the habits that delayed their purpose. And we'd come right back in. Consecration means setting yourself apart, cutting off what needs to be cut off, creating boundaries that demons cannot cross because you have removed their access points. I'm not talking about being perfect. I'm talking about being serious. Serious about your calling, serious about your freedom, serious enough to make changes that cost you something. Let me tell you what consecration looked like for me. After I got saved, I had to cut off everything. The music I used to listen to, the places I used to go, the people who didn't want me to change. It was lonely for a while, it was hard, but it was necessary. Some of those access points had been in my life for so long that I didn't even recognize them as access points. They just felt normal, part of who I was. But they weren't part of who God made me to be. They were chains I had worn so long they felt like jewelry. Consecration is taking off the chains, even the ones that feel comfortable, even the ones you've gotten used to, even the ones you think you can't live without. You can live without them and you'll live better. The fourth key is persistence. This is the one that breaks my heart because most people give up right before breakthrough. Danny's mother prayed for 17 years. 17 years of seeing no change. 17 years of watching her son spiral further and further down. 17 years of calling his name before the throne when every piece of evidence said it was hopeless. And on year 18, everything changed. I've seen assignments break on the first declaration. I've seen them break after years of warfare. There is no formula. There is no guaranteed timeline. But I can tell you this with absolute certainty. Persistence wins. The enemy has a limited amount of time. You have eternity. He can only fight so long. You can pray forever. He eventually runs out of ammunition. You never run out of Jesus. Don't give up. If you've been fighting for years, don't give up. If you've seen no results, don't give up. If everyone else has told you to accept your situation, don't give up. Your breakthrough is coming. And sometimes it's right on the other side of the moment you wanted to quit. Now let me tell you how I got out. I spent 17 years doing this work. Tracking Christians, assigning demons, destroying destinies, and I was good at it, better than most. My success rate was over 90%, but there was one assignment I couldn't complete. Her name was Grace. Ironic, right? Grace was a prayer warrior in a small church outside Wichita. Nothing special about the church, maybe 80 people on a good Sunday. No famous pastor, no mega anything, just believers who took prayer seriously. Grace had been on our radar for years, not because of any prophetic words spoken over her, not because of unusual gifts, but because of what she did. She prayed every morning, 4 o'clock, before the sun came up. Grace would get on her knees in her living room and pray for 2 hours, for her family, for her church, for her city, for people she had never met, and her prayers were blocking our work. Operations that should have succeeded were failing. Assignments that should have stuck were breaking. In a radius around that little church, we were losing ground. We couldn't figure out why, until we identified Grace. I was sent personally to handle her. By that point, I had been in the organization for 16 years. I had never failed an assignment. Never. Grace was supposed to be my final proof, my ultimate demonstration, my graduation into the highest levels of leadership. I watched her for 3 months, studied her patterns, identified her weaknesses. She had health issues, a daughter who had left the faith, financial struggles. Plenty of openings. I assigned everything we had, nothing worked. Health attacks bounced off. Her daughter called her out of nowhere, crying, asking to come home. Money appeared when it shouldn't have. Every door I closed, God opened another. It was infuriating. Then I made a mistake. I got too close. See, normally we work from a distance. We assign and observe. We don't engage personally. It's a rule, an important rule. Because when you get close to these people, something happens. But I was frustrated. I was angry. I wanted to see her face when she broke. So I went to her church just once, just to observe, just to see this woman who was somehow defeating everything I threw at her. I sat in the back row. Nobody paid attention to me. Just another visitor. The worship was simple, the sermon was average, nothing remarkable. But then they did something I wasn't prepared for. They prayed. Not the little rehearsed prayers I had heard in some churches. Real prayer, the kind that rises from the gut, the kind that calls things into existence, the kind that breaks chains. And Grace was leading it. This little old woman with arthritis in her hands and white hair that hadn't been styled in decades. She stood up at the altar and started to pray. And something inside me cracked. I can't explain it any other way. I had spent 16 years building walls, layers of protection, demonic agreements that should have shielded me from anything holy. Grace's prayer cut through all of it. She wasn't even praying for me. She didn't know I was there. She was praying for someone in the community who had lost their job. Just a general prayer for provision. But when she said the name of Jesus, I felt it. Not heard it. Felt it. In my chest, in my bones, in places I had forgotten existed. I left before the service ended. Got in my car. Started driving. Had no idea where I was going. I ended up in a field outside town. Just sitting in my truck staring at nothing, trying to understand what had happened. That's when God spoke to me. I know how that sounds. Trust me, I know. After 16 years of working for the other side, the last thing I expected was God to speak to me. But he did. He said, "I've been waiting for you, Ryder, that's all. Nothing dramatic, nothing condemning, just waiting." Like a father watching for his son to come home. I broke down everything I had done, everyone I had hurt, every destiny I had attacked, every prayer I had blocked, every family I had destroyed. It all came flooding back. And I wept like I hadn't wept since my father died. I drove back to Grace's church. The service was over. Everyone had gone home. Everyone except Grace. She was still in the sanctuary, still praying, like she knew. I walked down that aisle like a man walking to his own execution, because that's what it was. The death of everything I had been, everything I had built, everything I had served. I fell at her feet and confessed everything, what I was, what I had done, why I had come, all of it. Grace didn't flinch, didn't run, didn't condemn. She put her arthritic hands on my head and she prayed for me. For 3 hours. And when she was done, I was free. Not just forgiven, free. Completely, totally, irreversibly free. I won't tell you the transition was easy. The organization doesn't let people walk away. There were threats, there were attacks, there were nights I wasn't sure I would survive. But Grace's church took me in, protected me, surrounded me with prayer warriors who knew how to fight in the spirit. I went through the Destroying Assignments protocol as part of my healing, learning to identify and break every assignment I had helped to place on others, learning to recognize the attacks that were now coming against me, learning to walk in the freedom Christ had purchased. 12 years later, I'm still walking, and now I spend my time making sure you know what I know, so you can walk in freedom too. So let me bring this all together. You were tracked from birth. If you have a calling, if you have a destiny, if there is anything God wants to do through your life, the enemy identified you early and assigned specifically. There are 5 ways you were identified: spiritual lineage, birth circumstances, prophetic words, natural gifts, demonic intelligence. There are 4 types of destiny assignments: confusion, isolation, delay, destruction. Most people deal with more than one. There are 4 keys to breaking these assignments: identification, declaration, consecration, persistence, and there is one name that shatters every assignment: Jesus. Look, I spent 17 years on the wrong side. I know how this stuff works because I did it. And I'm telling you, you don't have to live under these assignments anymore. The tracking ends today. The assignments end today. The confusion, the isolation, the delays, the destruction, all of it ends today. If you want the complete protocol for breaking every type of assignment, grab Destroying Assignments, the 14-day Deliverance protocol. Links in the description. It'll walk you through everything day by day. My name's Ryder. I grew up in a faded railroad town in central Kansas. I spent 17 years doing things I can never take back. But God, He pulled me out. He washed me clean. And now I spend my time making sure you know what I know, so you can walk in freedom. Let me pray for you, Father. I lift up everyone watching right now. I break every tracking mechanism that has followed them since birth. I break every assignment of confusion, every assignment of isolation, every assignment of delay, every assignment of destruction. I declare that their destiny will not be stopped, delayed, or destroyed. Let them see clearly. Let them connect deeply. Let them seize their moments. Let them live fully. In Jesus' name, every file on them is burned. Every demon assigned to them is dismissed. Every weapon formed against their purpose fails. Let them walk into the fullness of what you have called them to be. Amen. From the pit to the cross. See you in the next one.